Miguel Dorati back here on the MMA Museum podcast, and I am joined by another old school, kind of legendary figure here, a heavyweight, a big guy, had a run from 1996 to 2003, and I'm talking about Harry Moskowitz. Harry, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Miguel?
Very nice to see you again, sir. Now, when you were on the fighting circuit in the 90s, you came up from Mississippi, but where are you from originally? And, how'd you get into this fight game?
I'm originally from a little town called Highlands, New Jersey, down on the Jersey Shore. I moved to Mississippi in 1992. But basically, I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. That was my goal. And I went to school. Iron Mike Sharp was with the WWE. He had a school in Bricktown, New Jersey. I went and took classes there. And after a little over a year, he told me that he didn't think I was going to make it. He said I had an attitude problem when people hit me, that if they hit me wrong, I wanted to fight. And wrestling, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to take what they call a bump.
Yeah.
I left that. I moved to Mississippi. Pretty much gave up on it. And I was bouncing in a bar in Biloxi, Mississippi. Buddy Albin brought the IFC there. And I met Buddy. And I met him on a Wednesday. That Saturday, I was in a cage.
Wow. Okay. The official record on the on Sherdog and Wikipedia and stuff listed August 1996, the IFC Mayhem in Mississippi event, and you fought Jerry Harris. So you met him Wednesday. You were already fighting by Saturday. Talk about that whole story. So you're bouncing. They come in, and at the time, IFC's a pretty, I'm sure there was radio advertisement and posters around town and that sort of stuff. Well, what can you tell us about the rest of that interaction? Did you actually sign a contract, or didn't?
I met Buddy that night in the bar. Talked with him for a little while. He gave me his business card. Told me if I was interested to come to his hotel the next day. I went Thursday. Talked to him. I had a friend of mine that was a martial artist. I went and trained 2 days with him and got in a cage on Saturday.
Now,
fell in love.
Aside from the pro wrestling, which does, it helps you with the crowds, it helps you with, experience. It's good experience, especially for the time. Better than bouncing, probably. But what else did you do? A little street fighting? Were you, tough guy in Jersey?
I was a big street fighter.
Okay,
and I love to fight. I've always, since I was a kid, I loved to fight. I wasn't always a big kid. I got beat up a whole lot until I was about 15 or 16, and then I grew. And if you beat me up when I was little, I was coming looking for you, and I was going to beat you. I was getting my payback. So I fought a lot.
Okay, and you went for a little guy to be a very big guy because, they list you as a super heavyweight. Now, how big were you around that time when you were doing the pro wrestling stuff?
6'5", 300 pounds.
300 pounds. Now, looking back at it, I'll ask you this question now instead of later, but would you have made 265 discipline for a UFC, like if the weight classes were around? Could you? Are you physically able to, or are you too big?
Right now I'm 275 pounds. I could have made it if I wanted to. I enjoyed being a big guy. I did.
Okay, yeah, it helps you. That was, the Dirty Harry, and you were an intimidating, presence and everything. But talk about that first fight. You fought Jerry Harris, who I believe is a UFC veteran at the time.
Yes, sir.
He was a karate practitioner. How'd that fight go? What went on in that? You're kind of green, let's say, for a cage fight.
When the fight first started, I had no idea about all the disciplines. They told me that Jerry was a really good kicker. He kicked me 3 or 4 good times in my leg, and it didn't, from my adrenaline pumping, it didn't really hurt. So I made my mind up. I smacked my leg and told him, I said, one more time. When he kicked me that one more time, I hit him with a right, dropped him on the ground. I jumped on top of him, started beating on him. But again, I had no training. I lost my cardio was garbage. I lost my wind. My mouthpiece, I spit my mouthpiece out. Andy Anderson was the referee. He stood us back up. Uh, Went back in. I picked Jerry up and slammed him on the ground. Now Jerry was a big boy. Jerry was about 6'8".
Yeah.
I picked him up and slammed him on the ground. When I come to the ground, I was so out of wind. He got me in a guillotine choke, and I had to tap out.
And Jerry, you kind of had the upper hand on that fight for a good bit of time. Now you take a loss. Some people don't come back after that. What was your mindset after that? I got to do this again, and because it looks like it was a short time, just a couple of weeks.
I fell in love with it, and I've got a lot of losses, but I learned from every one of them, and I enjoyed. Like I said, I love the fight. I win or lose, I enjoy every fight. I got to get hit 3 or 4 times to really get into it and enjoy it.
I think to stick with it when you did, you had to enjoy it because I don't think it was the money or anything like that.
No.
Now
I made $500 for that fight.
yeah, exactly. And now this IFC 3, and was that in Mobile, Alabama?
No, that was yeah. Let me think. Mayhem in Mississippi, and then IFC 3 was in Mobile. Yes.
Yeah. So what happened? You got in the car and drove over there, and because a buddy, they ran the show up the block. Is that how it went? Or you didn't fly by plane, did you?
No. That's only 50 minutes from my house.
Oh, fantastic! So now you got now that explains a little bit too because this was a good run for you. It looks like it was an 8-man tournament. You got the first couple of fights out of the way and made the finals. So you ran into a guy a little smaller than you, but a guy who was kind of a real pro at the time, Wes Gasaway.
Oh yeah.
Tell me what you remember about that, the opening rounds and stuff, because you won 2 fights that night.
My first 2 fights, I fought a guy named Robert Morris. He's from Mobile. He was small shows over there. He was a knockout artist. And in the back, he told me, he said, you should have stayed home. He said, because you're going to sleep tonight. So I knocked him out in about the first minute and a half of the fight. And then I fought a guy named Matt Two. It's TEU. He was some kind of karate practitioner. He hit like a girl. That fight was pretty easy. And then I got cocky and walked in there with Wes Gasaway, and I was looking at Wes's size and thinking, I'm gonna run through this guy. That didn't happen. Wes is tough. Wes is a really good man, but he is tough. Yeah.
Wes is Wes and his brother at the time, they both fought. Rest in peace to his brother, but they were a known duo from up north there, from the Ohio area, I believe, right? So
yes, sir.
So definitely tough guys that already made a name for themselves there. No shame in that loss. How did he get you? What do you remember about the fight?
With Wes?
Yeah.
Not much. The fight was early in the first round. Like I said, I got cocky and figured that I was just going to maul him. And I went in, swung, and I think I swung 1 time. He put me to sleep.
Gotcha. I got you. And he was quick, it took advantage of it and stuff like that. So now, you said you fell in love with it. Did you, at this point, say to yourself, I'm going to look for real training? What are you doing? What are you doing in general for income and things like that? Are you dedicated to this, or
no? I'm a crane operator by trade. Okay. That's what I still do today. I'm a union crane operator, but I was working in a shipyard, and I don't know if you've know of Big John Dixon.
Oh, sure. I've been trying to get him to come do the interview for a little bit, but he's slick on the phone.
John lived probably 15 minutes from me, and we hooked up. He was good friends with Jerry Harris, and after that first fight, he come to me and gave me his phone number. Told me, he said, if you really want to train, you come see me. So I started training with John and got my cardio where it needed to be, and
Hats off to Dixon too, because I mean, at the end of the day, I remember him from those days too. They come out and they announce him, and what always impresses me is, back then his ring, they'd announce him as being from the Dungeon. That was the name of his school, right?
Dixon's Dungeon.
It still is to this day. He's there in the dungeon, and it hasn't changed, and it's still hardcore training. And he's an amazing longevity story. I definitely want to interview John Dixon.
John is if it hadn't been for John, I probably would have gave it up early, because I had no idea how to train in it. My cardio was garbage. John, the reason they call John's place the Dungeon is, I don't care if it's the middle of the winter or like right now, it was 108 degrees here today.
Yeah.
There is no air conditioning. He has AC, but it's not turned on. You go in there to sweat, you're in there to work. And if you don't like it, he'll tell you. His motto is, there are no crybabies. If you get on that mat and you're crying, go ahead and get your stuff and leave.
Yep, and he goes down as another one who's an early pro that kind of stepped up to represent the American scene, because he fought like in Ukraine and stuff like that. Were you watching those tapes, or on any of those trips with him by chance?
Oh, no, I didn't go on. I didn't go to Ukraine with him, but I was there when he fought Severn. I went to a couple of his fights.
Yeah. No, that's part of being a team and stuff. Now you're getting kind of into is this going to be a career choice, or were you thinking of this as a career choice? Because you did one more IFC and then the UFC comes a call.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was thinking of it as a career choice, but at the same time, I was married, 6 children, a whole lot of responsibility, and the UFC was not paying what I needed to be able to survive. So I had to maintain a full-time job.
Okay, so like a lot of guys, like Chris Lytle, even Stipe Miocic, they had their fireman gig throughout their whole UFC run, never gave it up, even though, maybe sometimes they got to cash a little bit of a check. I know you didn't even get to cash a check, and 6 kids is a lot of responsibility. So I can definitely respect, doing the crane work and the construction stuff, or whatever, not on the side. This is on the side to that,
I almost met Chris Lytle a couple of years ago at Bare Knuckle.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if he had talked to you about it was I want to say, I think it was BKFC 5 or 6 when they had the big brawl break out in the crowd.
Okay. I've heard the story.
That was me that got sucker punched.
No kidding.
Yeah, some young 23-year-old kid running his mouth. We had some words, and as I turned to walk away, he hit me 3 times. He didn't realize I got an older son that makes me look like a little boy. And I got 3 sons. Well, my middle son and my older son was sitting right there above me, and when he hit me, my middle son, I don't know if you've seen the video, but my middle son picked him up and tried to throw him over the handrail to the floor.
Yes, yeah.
Thank God, if you watch that video, you'll see that big boy that was hitting him. That's my oldest boy. I was on his back trying to stop him, and he was carrying me.
Yeah, this kid, definitely. I'm going to go back and watch the video again now with that perspective. That it was. I didn't realize it was you, but that's just a bad choice on that guy's part all around. Huh?
He hit me 3 times, and all I did was look at him. I mean, he hit like a girl. I think his wife probably hit harder that night.
Yeah. So. Yeah, like it's a bad choice, and then so you got a couple of big boys. Do they fight?
Or my oldest boy fought one time. He did a kickboxing match. He's a police officer, so he got kicked straight on in the knee, and pretty much hyperextended his knee. It swole up. And his wife is a nurse, and she talked to him and told him, she said, you got to make a choice. Either you're going to be a police officer, because if you get hurt, can't do your job. She said, where does that leave us?
Yeah.
So he made the right choice and gave it up. And I'm glad. I did not want any of my kids fighting.
Yeah, and you don't you paid a lot of dues on the road and for no money and stuff like that. And unfortunately, unless you're really, really blessed, that's still the path for most people. Most people walk away from the sport even nowadays with crap. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, it
So,
is.
yeah, I would say that that's definitely a good choice. But um, so you get the IFC 4 under your belt, and here now comes UFC 15. Now it's a kind of obviously early UFCs are all legendary type of points, but this one in particular, I believe, was one of the first that John Peretti was actually the matchmaker for, and he brought in 4-man tournaments. I think Kerr and Stott fought in the tournament. I think the other tournament may have been was the one with Bob Gilstrap, Alan Go as Dan Henderson. Was it Dan Henderson?
No, Dan Henderson was UFC 17.
I got you. Okay.
Right.
So what do you remember walking into UFC 15 and the whole thing?
I was a nervous wreck. I mean, the UFC, that was the granddaddy. That was when I first started watching any kind of mixed martial arts. First time I saw the UFC, I knew in my mind that I wanted to do that. I told my mom, I said, someday I'm going to do this. She told me that I was retarded.
Yeah.
I always wanted to fight Dan Severn. That was my goal. I got to fight Dan. My first time walking in that UFC, though, I was highly intimidated. I mean, some of the guys that I've been watching on TV were there. I was like a little fan kid, starstruck. But when it was go time, I fought what was his name? Alex Hunter.
Yeah,
They
Alex
called me
Hunter.
the Chief. I fought him. I think I got robbed, but hey, you know what? You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. And it went to a split decision, after all is said and done, and they had you back. So at the very least, you got a good performance in your first one. But yeah, the win. There are people who agree with you as you should have won.
I went out that night drinking, and I went out that night drinking. Alex Hunter went to the hospital, so I felt good.
Yeah, and let me ask you just about that. We talked a little bit about it. So you drive a crane and you got your gig. You're coming here. It's the UFC, like you said, the granddaddy. But is that? Do you realize here, as a gentleman, as a smart human being, that it ain't all it's cracked up to be? That's still pretty small time because we're still probably in a war memorial type of building, and there's 2,000 people in the audience, and
Yeah.
so talk about your memories of it kind of being rinky-dink still, because this is before Zuffa and what you see now.
Well, UFC 15 was fought at the Casino Magic in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. It was in a tent. It looked like one of them big circus tents. There was probably maybe 2,000, 2,500 people in attendance. At the time, like I said, I was starstruck. So at the time, I didn't think, man, I had no idea that it was going to become what it is today. No idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, was there an after fight party, or how? Talk about going to get paid after the show and stuff like that, because they used to have a way of doing it. I was at this show too.
Yeah, there was an after fight party in Casino Magic. Bob Marowitz, Art Davies, they put on a good show. They took very good care of us. I wish they had never gotten rid of the UFC. I mean, if they hadn't gotten rid of it, it probably wouldn't be around today, because it wasn't what it is. They didn't have the money to make it what it is. But I like their management a whole lot better than what I'm seeing today.
Yeah, it nowadays it's very cookie cutter to me. What I see, I was doing an interview with 135-pound Matt Hamilton, who put in more than 15 fights back in '98 in that period of time, and he had fought one fight 15 straight minutes. You fought Alex Hunter 10 straight minutes. He had other fights 6 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 minutes. All one round straight. that stuff
Oh
will
yeah.
never happen again. You had circumstances where, especially on the smaller shows, maybe your opponent didn't show up, or you didn't know you were going to fight, and if Harry says, "I'll fight anyone," sometimes it's a clown, but sometimes all of a sudden, sometimes guys were popping up who were serious business.
Oh yes. Oh
So
yes.
the
Look, when
risks were immeasurable back then.
you're one of Dana's boys, you get to pretty much handpick who you want to fight. If you're the champion, it doesn't matter if there's a number one contender or you say who you're going to fight, when you're going to fight. There was none of that back then. Man, Horace Gracie, little guy, come in there and destroyed guys 3 times his size. I mean, the UFC was so much better back then. I believe they ought to bring back your tournaments. The heck with these rounds. Start the fight till the finish.
Or even if just 15 straight minutes of one round, I think would add a whole different dimension. And I think heighten interest, because right now it's almost like the conditioning is at such a level when they're at that, in the UFC, it's at such a level that you could legitimately fight a 3-round fight and really not be that tired afterwards.
Right.
And I thought the idea of this was giving your all, and or one of the concepts that made it great was that you give it your all. You're out there literally kind of trying to fight for your life, and now that mentality has been taken away from it. So
I agree.
So yeah. So now you mentioned bare knuckle. Are you thinking, man, I wish I was 20 years younger?
Man, I wish I was 5 years younger because I would. I'm looking at I'm looking at a hip replacement. I got bad shoulders. I'm 56 years old, but if I was 50 years old before I knew all the problems I got, I think I would have tried it. I really do. There's like I said, I love to fight. There's still that gene in my mind that says that I could do it.
That's cool. That's cool. Are you
My
a fan
wife
of
keeps me
BKFC?
grounded.
Like, what do you think of like for example, I think that like guys like Arnold Adams to me is kind of like an unsung hero guy. It's like why isn't he getting more publicity? And they kind of swung away and went towards, bringing in Rockhold is a nice gimmick, but Arnold Adams, cut his teeth, paid his dues, and deserved a little bit better treatment. So I don't know. Like for example, I thought, and they have some intriguing homegrown stuff like Arnold Adams and stuff. That's who you could have been fighting. God, that's probably not something you want to do. Like, what do you think of Arnold and the whole BKFC scene?
I think Arnold got robbed when he fought Alan Belcher.
Yeah,
I think Arnold got robbed. Alan Belcher just now stepped up and said, I want to go box. I'm going to relinquish my title. But as soon as I do this heavyweight boxing match, then I want to come back and fight for my title again. And they're going to let him do it instead of making him fight his way back up. I mean, they're letting him handpick. And like you said, Arnold Adams, he was right there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And
at the very least, he did enough to he put up the belt. All right. There are a lot of people who agree with you that he beat Belcher, but okay. So you give it to Belcher. The guy earned a rematch. None of this joking around. It's not like he doesn't. It's not like he was a fluky guy with the belt. Now he has to work his way back up. I think he earned that rematch, and it didn't materialize.
And I agree. I believe he ought to be one of the first ones considered to fight for this title now that Belcher gave it up.
Yeah, and I think this carries weight, for the people out there in the BKFC fans because, do you know Belcher? Because he's from down that area.
Yeah, Belcher lives we live in the same town.
Yeah, so I mean, Harry, if he wanted to bend this way, would probably be towards Belcher, but I think he's calling it really right down the middle the way he sees it here because Arnold, you could go with the hometown guy, or you could go with what's right. You're going with what's right, I think.
Oh yes. Look, what's her name? Christine Faria. She's their champion, and she's a great fighter. But every time they talk about her, they say she's undefeated. I don't know if you ever seen Helen Ianza Peralta, but Helen Peralta fought her, beat her, took her title from her, and they never let her defend her belt.
Yeah.
Because she came in as a nobody. They were paying her basically nothing. When she won the title, she said, "You're going to have to give me a different contract." And they, like Christine Ferea, that they're handpicking who she's going to fight. I ain't taking nothing away from her. She's tough. She's a great fighter. But stop this handpicking stuff. Go to the number one contender. Let them fight her. Helen Peralta has tried to get back in there numerous times, and they will not touch her. Why, I don't know.
Yeah, they seem to struggle with continuity to me. Not bringing back Arnold is not clean at all. There's also the case of Thiago Alves, the Florida guy who was an MMA fighter, where they actually, I think he held their belt. They actually did a show in South Florida and didn't have him on the card, and he was under contract. So there are holes in the game, but I think me and you agree, though, it is exciting stuff, and Arnold Adams should be a poster boy for it. But
I think Arnold Adams should be the number one contender for this heavyweight title right now. And look, Big Ben Rothwell's tough. They're all tough, but they haven't earned that spot. Arnold Adams has.
Yeah, but Ben's actually a guy that I know. I match made for him a few times. And again, here's that's the kind of thing where, like, you ask me to pick from my heart, you go with your friend, the guy you know. I mean, we're not friends, we don't have Thanksgiving together, but he'll still answer my chats. So
I think I lost
but
you.
Arnold Adams to me is an unsung hero,
Hello?
and after a little bit of technical difficulties, we have returned with Harry Moskowitz for part 2. And Harry, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Fighting this heat in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yep, it's I'm reading from down here that it's pretty hot up there, but we left off, and you were already in the UFC. You had the Alex Hunter fight. You felt you won that fight. They did UFC 16, and you got a call again for UFC 17. Now that's in Mobile, Alabama. That's you're staying in the neighborhood, but you get Andre Roberts. Now Andre he's got one of the things is that he's bigger than you, which is unusual. I don't know how many guys you fought that were bigger than you. And then he comes with really like a pro team, like the Milicic team and everybody backing him. How did that feel, and what was that whole atmosphere like at UFC 17?
UFC 17 was it was a classy show. It was very well put together. That was my first time meeting John Peretti.
Okay.
I had never met John before. He came in, I believe he came in UFC 16, but it was my first time meeting him. In between 15 and 17, I decided I was going to start using a manager to try to book my fights. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a guy named Jeff Weller out of California.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm sorry?
No, I'm not, but go ahead.
Well, Jeff helped me get the UFC 17 fight. I still have my contract at home from it. And when it was delivered to me, Jeff had wrote on it. He said, "I recommend you don't take this fight." I don't know what I had done. I don't know why he didn't like me, but John Peretti did not like me at all.
Okay.
Jeff told me that, and Jeff told me, he said, "I recommend you don't take this fight." He said, because John Peretti is offering Andre a bonus if he puts you completely out of fight. So that piqued my interest even more. So I took the fight because, like I said earlier, I love the fight. I'm not scared of getting beat. I'm not scared. I learned from every fight I ever had. I learned from.
Yeah. And I was going to say, when you hear something like that, I could already tell from the first part of the interview that, it was going to stick with you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Because
as far as a person,
go ahead, you go.
As far as a person, Andre Roberts, I think Andre is a great guy. I really do. He was everything I expected. I thought he would hit a lot harder because standing up, standing up, we were good. We never went to the ground.
Yeah.
We slugged it out for a while, and when we got against the cage, he caught me with an elbow to the side of the head, and you can imagine the size of the man when he hit me with that elbow. I went down. I'm trying to remember the referee's name. I can't remember the referee's name.
It wasn't Big John?
No. Anyway, no, that was way before Yamasaki.
Okay, yeah, this is the early days. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. When he came, he bent over to talk to me to ask me if I was okay. And Andre came across his back and hit me again with my head on the mat. And he stopped the fight automatically there. It was, and at the time I was mad. At the time I thought, well, that was a punk move to hit me while I was down like that and the referee talking to me. But at the same time, it was the heat of the moment. I probably would have done the same thing.
Now, let me ask you, did you ever talk to Peretti about, you're not a guy to keep quiet, I don't think. Did you ever confront Peretti about the bonus for Andre? What was that about?
No, I never did, because I didn't want to put Jeff on the spot. I didn't know where Jeff had dealt with some other fighters, and I didn't want to put Jeff on the spot with, this is what I was told. So the way I looked at it is if he didn't like me, that was his problem, not mine.
Okay. Now, that was the last time you were in the UFC. Was was the UFC something that stuck with you for a little while? Was it something you were trying to work your way back to? Was that a goal?
It was definitely a goal. After UFC 17, I took it. I got real serious. I went from 300 pounds down to 245 pounds training, got myself in really good shape. I attended UFC 19 in New Orleans, and I talked to Bob Marowitz. I talked to Paula Romero. I talked to all of them there, and Bob had told me that he was going to give me another shot at it. And right after that is when Dana White and them took over. So I never got that opportunity again, but I enjoyed it while it lasted.
And you can tell you took it a little bit seriously because you went back. Then you took a fight on hook and shoot. So you drove to Indiana, and it was to fight Travis Fulton. It was the first time you got a taste of Travis. Now Travis would fit right in around the Andre Roberts, Alex Hunter level. You're fighting some of the better guys out there on the circuit. What was that fight like?
It was my first time ever fighting in a ring. It was different. I wasn't used to the as far as being like when we went to the ground, my head stuck outside the ring. They stopped the fight, pulled us back into the center. They put me on my back, put him in a full mount on top of me. When the ref said go, he hit me. I wasn't used to it. My opinion is if you break the fight up, you're going to stop the fight, stand us back up, let us go. But again, I learned from it. I lost to Travis. Me and Travis fought again in Illinois.
Yep.
We fought again in Illinois. It was a lot different fight. He got me in an armbar, but it was a whole lot different fight.
Well, what went on? That was on Brian Madden's show, a guy named Brian Madden that did the SFC Submission Championships.
Yes. Yeah, Brian had contacted me about coming up there to fight, and he offered me Travis. Me and Travis were friends by then, and it was a chance to go up there and test myself. So, like I said, I've never turned down a fight, so it was something I was interested in doing.
Yeah, just look it out with him because this time it went almost 7 minutes straight, one round. 6.5 minutes, and before he armbarred you. So were you getting a little bit of your payback?
Oh yeah, we slugged it out real well. We probably didn't go to the ground till about 40 seconds before the end of the fight. When we went down is when he got the armbar on me. He actually got me in an armbar. I powered out of it. He got me in another one, and it was too late. I couldn't get back out of that one.
Yep.
So.
And now, right around this time too, you had a 2-fight winning streak where you fought Joe Namath, and you kind of got back on track. And then there was a fight with Chris Seifert there, and this is sandwiched in between the Fulton fights. What do you remember about that 2-fight winning streak? That's a reality combat show, which I think is probably Clemente. And
no, that was before Clemente. That was Chad Robichaud and Carl. I can't remember Carl's last name. Carl fought for a while, and Chad Robichaud was a fighter.
Okay.
They owned Reality Combat at that time before they sold it to Rich Clemente.
I got you. Cool. So you predate the Clemente years with that. What was the atmosphere of those shows like? Because down in that area, they didn't get a lot of publicity, but you probably had a couple of thousand people in the audience. It was probably pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, they put on a really good show. They had been around the fight circuits for a while, so they had a lot of knowledge. It was a really good show. When I fought Joe Namath, there was probably 1,800, 2,000 people there, maybe a little bit more. I was in a lot better shape when Joe was offered to fight. He told me afterwards. He said when I was offered to fight, he said I was told that you hardly ever trained, that you were out of shape, your cardio stunk. What Joe didn't realize is I got serious at that time. I was in a pool all the time, building my cardio. I was grappling 4 or 5 hours a day. I was running wind sprints. I dropped down to, I was about 248 pounds when I fought Joe from 300 pounds in the UFC. And that fight did not last long. Didn't last long at all. And then I got offered Chris Seifert. Chris is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I knew I didn't want to go to the ground with him. We fought almost 17 minutes standing up. We never went to the ground. 17 minutes slugging it out, no rounds.
Wow.
It was a bloodbath. It ended up getting stopped for blood. I split Chris's chin open underneath his chin. I split him pretty good, and they stopped it. That was with the World Valley Judo.
Yeah, and so now you got 2 wins in a row. Then now you're going to fight Fulton again here in a minute. But then you got another guy, one of those guys from back in that era that was kind of like a hitman, like a pro, and that's Aaron Brink in Monty's Rings USA show.
Yes, I fought him in Orem, Utah.
And what was it?
I knew nothing about him. I knew nothing about Aaron Brink. Well, I got offered to fight. Monty Cox offered me to fight. I took it. Went to Utah, and the boy had some hands on him. He hit me pretty good, put me down, and the fight ended.
Now, let me ask you. Now, you're a big guy. We know you love to fight. You haven't, shied away from a firefight, but you have been dropped and knocked out a couple of times. Are you thinking that might be a weakness of yours? And also, are you worrying about concussions? And because I don't think even the UFC at that time, it's not like you went through a battery of medicals for this stuff. Am I right?
No, there's nothing like it is today.
Yeah, you had
I've never really worried about the concussions, and it's been a long time, and I still got all my mind is there, all my facilities are there. I think I'm okay.
and that's a blessing, because enough time has passed where if there was going to be some of that long-term stuff, like maybe now you feel like I slur some words and things. So I'm very glad, to hear and to see that you managed to stay out of that, because some guys are suffering nowadays, and there were a couple of knockouts. There was the one in Indiana with hook and shoot with on the Travis fight, the first one. That one, You didn't, that was when we were worried a little bit about you for a little bit. So, big guys also have the disadvantage in my book that everybody who hits them feels like, man, I could just cut loose on this big old guy. You know what I mean? So it's like you never, you know what I mean? So anyway, talk
Let
about
me
it. You
tell you
weren't
a
worried
little
about
about.
CTE at all.
No, no, not at all. Let me tell you a little bit about that fight with Travis Fulton when he knocked me out in Indiana. I think I was so badly stunned by it that I left the arena, forgot all about my stuff that was in the hotel, got in the car, and I had to drive. We had to drive through Missouri, Kentucky, part of Tennessee, and the Mississippi. And I'm sorry, not yeah. Well, we were staying in no, not Missouri. Anyway, I got halfway through Alabama before
Ooh.
I realized I still had my fight trunks on and my cup on.
Oh my God.
I probably shouldn't have been driving. Travis, they called him the hands of stone. That man could hit. He really. It's. I hate what happened to him in the later years. I hate that. If he did what he did, he deserved what he got. But I'm not the judge or the jury, so.
Yeah.
But the man was tough.
Yeah, no, he's a controversial figure in a lot of ways because at the time that you fought him, he was probably thinking the same thing you were. I want to get to UFC. I want to do this, and then there were times where he went away like you did, dropped, pounds and came back in really good shape, taking it seriously. And then he was a very dangerous guy. After that, it kind of, faded away from that and stuff like that. But you faced him
Yeah.
when he was taking this stuff very seriously.
Yes. Yeah. And the second time the first time I faced him, I wasn't taking it serious. The second time I was. So the second fight was a lot different.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you that. Do you feel a little bit of regret because you did the UFC twice, and then after that, you were like, all right, now I see the level. Now I'm going to take it seriously. Do you wish I had kicked in a little bit before?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. My whole life been different. They, I look at the UFC today and think, could it have been me? But you don't miss what you don't have. But yeah, if I had taken it, I wish I had taken it a whole lot more serious.
Yeah.
So there's
Now,
there's a whole lot of stuff from back then. Like I stated earlier, me and John Dixon trained together. John was my trainer. Me and John got offered a chance to go to Japan with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and turned it down because I didn't want to be known for doing works. And look back now, and I should have took it.
yeah, especially, didn't you say that we started the interview 2 days ago? So I just thought you had pro wrestling in your heart from the very beginning.
Yes, sir.
So you
Yes, sir.
get an offer to pro wrestle in Japan after you started your career, um, and you turned it down just because of you didn't want to be associated with works and stuff.
Oh yeah, because a lot of promoters. I ain't gonna say no names, but I know guys that were involved with legitimate organizations and took a little bit extra money to make their guy look good,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up where they couldn't get a good fight. They couldn't get to the UFC because word got out that they had done a work,
Yeah,
and
and
I didn't want that. I love
that,
fighting too much to do that.
that's cool. That's cool. What about Dixon? How come he was with you on that? I mean, I could see John having the same mentality, but at the same time, I could see John being maybe a little more of a businessman because he's got a gym and you got your money. You know what I mean? Your job is it's coming in, so he's got to hustle a little more. How come he didn't go over?
I really don't know what stopped him from going. At the time, me and John were working together, plus training together. He held a full-time job plus his gym, and
Wow.
he had a family, wife and kids. Um, I decided I wasn't going, and he decided at the same time he wasn't going to do it. I look back now, and we should have jumped all over it.
So you never went to Japan then, in terms of the
No,
fight game.
no.
Yeah,
I,
you probably missed an opportunity there. So now you fight Fulton the second time up in Illinois. You're on the circuit. You're driving back and forth. Uh, Now we're going to get into something. I think you mentioned that one of your motivating factors to do this was you wanted to test yourself. And Severn was the guy that you mentioned, Dan Severn, the first UFC, heavyweight champion
yes.
guy. And you're going to get a chance to get Severn. Now it's 2001. It's not 1996 anymore. But what was that like? Was it still a dream, or was it still, at this point you're
Oh
still
yeah.
not being paid? So what was your thoughts going into the fight?
You know, I was like a little kid back then. I was being offered. Severn was my hero in a cage. And when I got the opportunity to fight him, I told my wife, my mom and dad, all of them, I don't ever have to fight again. I've accomplished what I want to do, what I set out to do. Dan, I learned more fighting Dan in 5 minutes than I probably learned in 5 years training in the gym. But when they gave that man the nickname the Beast, they knew what they were doing. He's a great guy, but when that referee said go, he was like a caged animal, and I look up to him a lot. He's a great guy. It was a great experience. I think, in my opinion, Dan would have went a whole lot further and probably would have held that title a lot longer if he could have got that wrestling mentality out. What I say by that is when a wrestler hits, they don't hit with a closed fist. They hit a lot with the palm, because Dan was doing the NWA, WWE, and he never hit me with a closed fist. But on the ground, Dan was like a cat. He
Yeah.
was all, oh yes.
Yeah, he's a legend, a Hall of Famer. He was the first, and I think you're right. I think he doesn't see a UFC fight that much different than a pro wrestling fight, because he's pretty much going to dominate anybody. You know what I
Oh
mean? He's one
yes.
of those gifted athlete guys. Is that something at this point, at the Severn fight, or where did you maybe realize, I can't keep up with, working and doing this and stuff like that. And you're also, I see, you're also a fan. You know what I mean? So you got to be realistic about this. Was Severn an eye opener that way?
He was, but at the same time, I took a few more fights after that, and I wasn't even training because, like I said, I love fighting so much that they called me on the phone, and I'd say, "Yeah, man, I'll take it."
Yeah.
It was an addiction.
Yeah,
It really
it's funny.
was.
It's a recurring theme with the young guys. I'm sorry, the old school guys back then. This was it was an amazing buzz of just finding a fight, not knowing who you're going to fight that day, seeing the person for the first time at the arena. Now everybody's scouted and everything's like that. You're coming here towards. There are a few more fights on the record after Severn. What was fighting Jonathan Ivey like? You brought him down to Louisiana, and Ivey's another one of those guys with 100 plus fights at this point. I think he's still going.
He is. He definitely is. You know, the leg lock monster.
Is that what he got you with?
He got me with a knee bar.
Gotcha.
He got
Okay.
we fought in a ring. We actually fought in a nightclub in a ring,
Okay.
and standing up, I had him, and all of a sudden he spun. When I hit him, he spun around. I thought he was going down. He bent over, hooked my ankle, and rolled. And before I knew it, I was in a knee bar. The man's strong. The man's really good. I got a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, once he commits, with his strength and body type, it's hard to make him not do what he wants to do,
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. And I fought because I loved it. I fought because it was it was an addiction to me. Jonathan fought. Jonathan was a dangerous man because he was a single father, and that was the only way he had to support his child.
yeah.
He would take any fight anywhere, and he was there. That made him dangerous because that was the way of putting food on the table for his little girl.
Yeah. He's another guy, he's got something in common with you. And he debuted it on Hook and Shoot, and he came with a guy named Tommy Graham. We've talked about Travis Fulton, rest in peace. We talked about Aaron Brink, also rest in peace. And Tommy Graham is another fellow who we've lost. But Tommy was I think from Louisville or somewhere in that area, and he was at a weightlifting contest, and that's where he saw Ivy. And when Ivy won the weightlifting contest, they literally went to a gym next door. He said, "Hey, would you be interested in fighting?" They went to a gym next door. He showed him like a key lock and a couple other moves. And the next weekend he was fighting at Hook and Shoot. It was like you talked to the promoter that weekend you were in the ring. Ivy, the same story, man. Just the bug hit early.
Back then, that's how it worked. Today, if you got to fight amateur, you got to be on a contender series or whatever to get your name out there. Back then, all you had to do was be willing to get in the cage and take that opportunity and the chance.
Now, in 2003, which is the last year you fought, in 2001, after the 7th fight, it looks like you took almost a year and a half off. And then you came back and had 4 fights, went 2-2, but you went out in style. You went out with a win at Extreme Fight Club against Johnny Brown. This is down in Morgan City, Louisiana. Describe the scene of your official last fight there.
That was a weird fight for me because Johnny Brown was a training partner at one time. And it was the first time that I ever fought that John Dixon was in the other corner. He was also Johnny Brown's trainer. And I had stopped going to John's gym. It was weird for me because when I fought, guys say they tune out the crowd. All they can hear is their trainer. That's all when I was in that cage, all I could hear was this, and I could not hear people screaming. It was like my mind blacked it all out. And I could hear John screaming to him, telling him what to do, because John knew me like a book.
Yeah.
And he kept telling him to take me down. And I made my mind up. We weren't going to the ground. We were going to stand up and bang. And it was a weird fight because, like I said, John Brown is a friend of mine. And it was the first time I had to punch a friend of mine in the face. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
That's a little bit of what Dixon has, that martial arts kind of thing where you can be friends afterwards. At this point, because you kind of were like a brawler, where you had the Dirty Harry nickname and stuff like that. And we haven't really talked about a big martial arts background. You were kind of picking it up as you went along. Is that something that you respect now with Dixon, or are you still not really into martial arts?
I'm not really into the martial arts, no. I just, whatever John was teaching at that moment, he taught me some Sambo, he taught me some jiu-jitsu, some Taekwondo. I was never a kicker. I hated to be kicked, so I was never a kicker. But I learned a little bit of each from him because he's well-rounded in numerous martial arts. So I picked up a little bit of it each, but no, that was never my forte.
And what do you do, now, like to stay in shape? You're still 275, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm down to 275. I got up to 320.
Okay.
And I just decided that I was done being big. From the years of beating my body, I got 2 bad knees. I got my elbow kills me, my shoulders kill me, and I thought to myself that all this weight I had on, sooner or later these knees were going to give out. I'm looking at a hip replacement. So I decided it was time to take some weight off them and make my body feel a little bit better.
That's good.
So
And have you gone back to any rolling or anything like that? Are you doing the pool or what? How you doing
I spend a lot of time. The kind of work I do. Um, I'm a union crane operator. I do oil refineries. That's what I like to do. So I travel all over the country, and right now I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, working at a Valero oil refinery. I go to Kansas. I go all over the place. So wherever I'm at, if they got a pool, I do use the pool. I use the gym as in a hotel, the hot tubs. So it's trying to get myself back in shape.
Yeah,
What,
yeah. It'll be better if you're going to have surgery too to be in good shape heading
oh
into it. You
yes.
know. So I can tell you watch the sport. What do you think of the whole PFL and Ngannou and all this controversy going on with it? Like, do you think he signed a good contract? Is that a good thing for him, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's a good thing for him and all of the fighters because, I mean, what the man was trying to do was establish some kind of retirement and more money for the UFC fighters. And like everybody's saying, he left because he's scared of John Jones. I don't believe that at all. I don't think Ngannou's scared of anybody.
Yeah,
And if you look at it, Ngannou was there. He was champion. John Jones had how many years that he was out, had a chance to come in and fight the man,
yeah.
and didn't do it. The only time he challenged Ngannou was when Ngannou was on the outs with Dana White and leaving. So this stuff of he's scared of him and he ran from him, I don't believe that at all. I think he made a good move going to the PFL.
Let me ask you, as a nuts and bolts guy, though, if they get in the ring, who's got that, Jones or Ngannou?
If Ngannou can keep it standing, I think he'll knock Jones out. But Jones ain't gonna stand with him. He's gonna take him to the ground.
Okay.
Ngannou has no defense on the ground.
Okay. Yeah, Jones is an all-time great for a reason. You know, you'd probably be
Oh
able
yeah,
to pick where it goes and stuff. So, who
oh
have you
yeah.
liked to watch over the years? I bet I'm obviously let's stick with the heavyweights because that's your neighborhood. But like, how do you feel when a guy like Ben Rothwell who was fighting back in the old days and he's still around and stuff like that? That's someone you automatically root for?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, most definitely. I've been communicating a lot on Facebook and Messenger with Mark Coleman. You
Okay.
see, he's making that comeback.
Yeah, I saw it first that he's been on that predator diet, or I'm probably getting it
He's
wrong, but
he's on the carnivore diet,
carnivore.
and he just signed. He's going to fight October the 8th, celebrity boxing.
Yeah, I actually I don't know if you saw he's going to box Montel Griffin. I don't know. Do you follow enough
Uh,
boxing to remember Montel?
oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Man, I watched some of Mark's training videos, and I private messaged him, and I told him, I said, "You look like you're getting in great shape." I said, "But you're doing what every wrestler does. Wrestlers lead with their head. Boxing, you can't lead with your head." I told him, I said, "Montel Griffin will punch your eyes out of your head if you continue like that." I said, you got him a trainer now. I said, you got to get him to train you as a boxer and get away from them wrestling, because I'm going to be honest, when Mark said he was going to make a comeback and that he was trying to get with celebrity boxing, I contacted, what's his name? God almighty, I can't think of his name. The owner
Yeah,
of
I'm not.
Celebrity Boxing. I
Yeah, I'm not
messaged
big
him
on.
myself.
But
Damon Feldman.
yeah, Feldman. Okay.
I contacted Damon Feldman and told him, I said, if you sign Mark, I said, give me 6 months and I'll box Mark.
Yeah.
Mark was the king of the ground to pound, but I don't see him sticking and moving. I don't. And I hate
Yep,
to
yep.
say
He's, trying to learn the box at 50, it's pretty detailed. And the thing about Montel Griffin is I had a chance to interview him one time. So Montel's dad was the amateur boxing trainer for the U.S. Olympic team. So Montel's dad had a relationship with like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Rep,
yeah.
Leonard and those guys. And Montel learned the box and the footwork at 5 years old.
Yeah,
Now,
this is something that,
at some point, Montel's father, I believe, passed away, and Montel promised his mother he wouldn't box, and he spent like 8 years not boxing. He didn't take it up again until he was 13 or 14. When he came back at 13 or 14, he realized his body still had it from when he was 5. It was glued
oh
to
yeah,
him. So you're talking about a guy who's been imprinted boxing. So yeah, very dangerous choice.
what do they say? You learn to ride a bike as a little kid, it sticks with you.
Exactly.
And if Montel was going to try and wrestle with Mark, I'd say Mark all day long.
Yeah.
But
Mark's coming to his world, and Montel's a guy that, you know, I think deserves more respect across his career. You know what I mean? When he beat Roy Jones, um, nobody expected him to. And then, because he was the unexpected guy, HBO and Roy and everybody kind of forced him into a rematch that he should have made them wait. He should have made them play the waiting game and hung out and done a couple of fights and kept his championship. But, he didn't have the guidance. It didn't work out that way. And unfortunately, people remember him as just a guy that beat Roy Jones. And he's an amazing boxer. He's an amazing guy.
oh yes, oh yeah, it's I'm gonna be watching the fight. I'm gonna watch Roy Jones fight tonight.
Oh, is he fighting tonight? God,
Yeah,
still
he's fighting. He's fighting at it's celebrity boxing. He's fighting that world champion bodybuilder.
okay.
What is his name? Something KO.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you what. You follow some of that other stuff. What do you think of? Hold on a second. Let me shut my dog. All right, hold on a second. All right. So, so what do you think of all that, like Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz and like that type of celebrity gimmicky boxing stuff? Are you into that, or like appreciate it, watch it?
You know, I think Jake Paul, the boy's got a lot of talent, but he's got a big mouth. I would love to see him. He fought Tommy Fury, and Tommy Fury showed him that he needs to go ahead and stick with these guys. Like he's going to fight Nate Diaz. He won't fight Nate in a cage. He'll fight him in a boxing ring. He wouldn't fight Tyrone Woodley in a cage. And he's good at what he does, but he needs to stay away from the guys that are professionals at it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a gimmick.
That's my
Let him
opinion.
make money. And Nate deserves a payday, just like every fighter does.
Oh yeah,
So, but I look at
I
it
think he's going
strictly
to beat
that way.
Nate. I think he'll beat Nate. I do, and I hate to say that because I like Nate.
Well, what gives you that feeling?
I think he's too big and strong. You
Okay.
know, Nate's got some good hands, but it's with 4-ounce gloves. It's not with these big boxing gloves. And that Stockton slap, that's not going to work with these gloves.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me about Nate in this fight, I think Nate's boxing would be okay. I think people would be surprised, but I do worry about him being over 35. At this point, he's not the fresh body in this fight. He's been through
Right.
miles, and sometimes, you get caught, a little bit off on the footwork or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting, but I'm not a big fan of the Jake Paul effect.
No, I don't like Jake. I would love to see Nate knock him out. I really would because I like Nate. I like Nate and Nick.
Yeah. What do you
But
think of this McGregor controversy where he just kind of crapped the bed, just didn't sign up for USADA? What do you think of USADA too? Let's ramble a little bit about that here as we close.
I like USADA because it keeps these guys honest. Man, back when I was fighting, you didn't know like Mark Kerr. That was a roid monster.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you were getting in. Now you do. You know these guys are clean, they're tested, and I think that it needs to be that way. I do.
Yeah, back in your day, Travis Fulton may have, he confided in me that he dabbled with it. So you may have fought him at a time with that. Brink is another guy that may have dabbled. in terms
Oh
of,
yeah.
in those old days, big old strong boys without any testing. So you're an advocate for the testing. I know you didn't ever had a reputation for doing that.
No, no. Man, you look at your Russians that were coming over, Igor Zinoviev. Man, all of that at that time, that was called body enhancement in Russia. That wasn't called steroids. That was body enhancement.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
They have a different philosophy on it. They rely. It's like using science. It's like, why wouldn't you?
oh
So
yeah,
so that's why. So, but you're still for it. You wouldn't. I would think that a system that allowed you to use steroids and put the commission doctors in the role of actually being like a doctor-patient relationship where they're aware of what the guys are doing and they're looking and testing and saying, okay, let's do another neurological exam, see if there's any deterioration, because all they do now is collect paper.
right.
You get the exam, they collect it, hey, it's stamped right, the date is right, go fight. And
That's true.
if they really were doing it, I would be all right with steroids because everybody, is aware of it. It could be between them and the commission doctor, but the commission is actually doing a doctor's job. So I know this is fantasy land, but that's the solution I think is the best one. Let them do it.
What I like about the testing now is they're testing you before the fights.
Yeah.
Back when I first started doing it, they tested you after. They tested you for drugs and everything after, so that if you failed the test, they didn't have to pay you.
Yeah, and that was the main
They got the
interest, to
fight
pay
out
you
of
or fine you, at least take some of your bite, take a bite out of your
Oh yeah,
money, but not preventative or trying to protect you in any way.
no, not at all, not at all.
Yeah,
You
so
know, the sport has changed a lot.
that's a very interesting part of the discussion that we're having there. So uh let's close out with the final prediction there. If you've got Nate Diaz and Jake Paul, you're going to pick Jake Paul.
No, I'm gonna pick Nate Diaz. I am, but I think Jake's gonna beat him. If I had a bet on it, I'd put my money on Jake.
Okay.
But in my heart, I want Nate.
Okay, I got you. So in your heart, you kind of want the MMA. Do you root for the MMA guys and stuff like that? What are you like?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here right now waiting until 8 o'clock. I'm getting ready to watch some what's it called, WFA.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch that at it. I don't know if you ever heard of Adam Guerra.
Okay, yeah, Adam Angel.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. Adam's my brother,
I
and
got you.
he's got a girl that he's been training for years now, and she's fighting for a championship tonight in Texas. And I'm
Cool.
gonna watch it. Oh
Cool.
yes.
So you're totally still into this stuff, and that's cool to know. And everybody out there who's listening, Big Harry is on Facebook, so go out there and make friends with this man. This man is still active. He's maybe heading into a little surgery, but he's still all there upstairs, and he's active and up with the fights if you want to discuss it, man. It was great catching up with you, Harry. Thank you so much for joining us here.
No, thank you, Miguel. You have a great day, buddy. You take care.
You too, sir. And I'll send you links and stuff as soon as this is up, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank
Probably
you.
about 5 days.
Sounds good.
All right. Peace, brother. Thank you.
Yes, sir.